Okay, let's get right into it. First thing to remember with TMC Tools is that you are looking at a web page inside of a web browser. So anything that you can do at home on AOL or at home in your on your personal computer, you can do with TMC Tools. Important things such as maybe changing text sizes to make it bigger or of course smaller. Even changing fonts. You can go up to the print button and just hit print to print out a copy. And even storing favorites as far as storing links to different parts of the site can be done. It functions as a web page. It is a web page inside a standard browser. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is the address. How do you start this system up? Very simply, just click on the E on your PC computer or launch the browser that's on your computer. And what I like to do is I store it as a home page or as in your favorites somewhere. That's where mine is. And that's how you can bring it right back up. In New York Center, we keep it as our home page, so that when we boot the browser up, it automatically goes to this page. You can either do that with the links or just type an address into the address bar. Every facility will have an address, and it looks something like the one up here, but instead of localhost, it'll probably be some sort of a number, 10.128.30.252 slant BOS slant index.asp or something to that effect. If what you're looking at in this presentation doesn't look exactly like what is in your facility, we are upgrading slowly all the different facilities to what New York, the latest version that New York is running, and we're also customizing a lot of the different facilities to have different looks. So if we have any ideas, something that you'd like to see, something that you don't like the layout of it, one of the beautiful parts about the TMC tools is that we can make these type of changes for the individual facilities. Okay, we'll start looking at the page itself. First thing you'll notice on the top, it says Welcome to TMC Tools, and it gives you the date and the time down to the seconds. This is important because TMC Tools refreshes this page about once a minute. So if you're looking at a page and the time is off by a lot, by 5 minutes or 20 minutes, then you know you have some sort of a problem. It will automatically refresh once a minute. If you want to force an update, you can just go over to the refresh button on your browser, click refresh, and as you noticed, it did update the time, which means you have the most current data from the database. Also, the F5 key is a nice shortcut that will automatically refresh the page also. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is there are three types of views in TMC Tools. There's what we're looking at now, which is the which I call the TMC view. It's what you will be using in the TMU unit. There's an area view, is what the areas will be looking at. And there's an office view. If you don't have the right type of security clearance, or you're not authorized to make edits to the areas or the main TMU page, then you automatically get transferred to what I call the office view, which is basically this view, but none of the links as far as to edit anything is available. It's basically a read-only version of this page. The first functionality that we will explain in TMC Tools is the airway and or destination stop box, which is this one right here. Currently, you'll see when there's nothing active under that category, you will get the word none, and we'll show you how to use this right now. First, you would click on the add or edit, and that's going to take you to this box. This is where we enter the information or we edit any of the information that has to do with the stops. Again, if the configuration looks a little bit different than what you're used to looking at, it's probably just a customization that was made for your facility. This is the New York setup that we're looking at right now. Okay, the way we would use this, the phone rings, there's another ground stop for Atlanta. You could type Atlanta in, and the facility that had stopped the Atlanta traffic is the command center, and let's say this affects area A and area B, or maybe in your case it may be 5 and 6 or 7 and 8, but that's where you would check, and in your facility would have the correct areas listed. Click the commit change button, It takes us back to our main page, and you'll see over here now that there's a stop in for Atlanta, and the stop was issued by the command center. If for some reason they take the stop off, you just click the edit button and you come right down here under action and click delete. That'll remove the stop, throw you back to the main page, and you'll see there's nothing in effect, so you'll have a none there. This is particularly useful during the swap season when airways get stopped and you're jostling around traffic trying to figure out what facilities have which airways open. We'll walk through one of those. Again, just click the button. Let's say there's a stop on J75. Oops, excuse me. J75, and New York has got weather in their facility. They can't get to it, and same with Washington. Washington won't accept traffic from New York. That affects Area A and Area B in my facility. Commit change, and now again we're back at our main status board, and anybody that's viewing this page can see that J75 has a stop on it. New York's unable to get to it, and so is Washington. Again, let's say the situation changes now, and Washington calls up and says, "Hey, New York, we can get on J75." That's only half the picture, obviously, because New York still can't use it, but Washington can use it. What you can do now is just click Edit, which loads that restriction up in this top box. Unclick Washington, click the Submit button or the Commit Change button, and as you can see, the Airway Destination Stops box has been updated to indicate now that the only person that has J75 closed is New York. Okay, the next couple of boxes on the top are our special activity box and our ground delay box. Special activities is kind of just an area to put things in that don't quite fit anywhere else, just a kind of one of those yellow sticky pad thingies. If it doesn't fit in a category, if it's not a restriction, a stop, a ground delay program, or a reroute, we put it up in the special activities box. We don't put military information. There's actually a separate section for military operations. Like I have right now, weather around Bacchus. It's not a restriction, but it's something that people may want to have, the TMCs may want to know and keep up there. If there's some sort of refueling that's active, you can put it up there. On the ground delay box, pretty simple. Command center calls you up with a ground delay, we put it in there, subs, the time frames, that type of thing, and it's just to have up there. We just want to know that it's active. We don't control them. We do have to act upon those type of messages, so we just put them there. If we click on either one of those links, and you'll see the two boxes come up, and these boxes are basically free text. So if we were to change any information, either one of these boxes, such as maybe now San Francisco is not just subs, it's for everybody, we could just hit make changes, and that will be updated on the TMC Tools sheet. And it's the same way with either one of these links. They go back to the same page, and again, it's just pretty much a scratch pad. This is for anything that doesn't fit, and the ground delay programs go here. It just keeps it nice and organized, and everybody can see this page, whether it's another TMC or if it's an area or someone in the offices, but you'll always be looking at the most current information if you're using this as your tool. In New York Center, we have a page, we chose to develop a page anyway, of route restrictions. And that's what this is. If we click on it, we'll go to the page. And basically, anytime we have a flow of traffic that's off its normal route, due to military reasons or weather reasons, and it's not a wholesale reroute, it's just kind of a restriction on the route. We'll put it here. Very easy to use. We keep them kind of off to the side because we don't want to see them all the time, but we know they're there. And when you want to add a restriction, you just click the link. It takes you to a text box, and let's say we have you just can type anything in, add it to the database, and you'll see that it'll takes you back to the main page. But if we go back to the route restriction page, it'll be listed there. If we wanted to edit it, you can click edit, and it's just again a free text box. If we go back, if we want to delete that, we could just click on the delete button, and again, if we go back to the route restriction page, we'll see that it's gone. We kind of use it for the oddball stuff, and if you see some of the things that we have written here, you can kind of figure out your facility may or may not need it. We've found in New York that since September 11th we had a lot of oddball flows that were happening, so we chose to implement this page. Again, at the bottom of the page is a link to bring it back to the main page, and any one of the messages has an edit and the delete button that corresponds to the message on the left, and that you can use. Okay, The next thing is the military operations. First, let me say that in New York Center, when we set this up, we have the ability to view or edit, for that matter, any of the military operations tied to specific machines. So someone from the outside or someone from a machine, even in your building, that the administrator of this program doesn't set up will not be able to view them. The way we get to these, you just click on the military link. It's like any of the other links on the page, and it brings you to the military ops page. Here, if you look at the messages, they're spelled out, and that's a free text message, so you can put anything you want in there. And then the status of it is hot or cold. And over here we have an edit button and a delete button. Delete should be fairly obvious by now. You click the delete button, the message will be gone, removed from the database. When you click on the edit button, it brings you to the edit page, and you could do two things here. You can click in here and, let's say, change the altitude. Click add to the database, and it's updated now. If you look on the Yankee up here, it's now up to flight level 280. Or if you clicked edit and you want to change the status of the block, maybe by turning it cold, you could just click on turn cold, and now you'll see the Yankee block status is cold now. Again, click on the edit button. If you want to turn it back hot, that button used to say turn cold, now it says turn hot. The program knows it is cold. You click it and it's hot again. The status as far as hot or cold does become important to the areas later on. You'll see as we look at the area view. Areas get notified of all the military information, but if the block is cold, it won't automatically show up on their display. So it is important. We use it to update it. We have our STMCs update the status of the military block, so one person is making the entries. Again, at the bottom of the page is a button, just the link to click it, brings you back to the main page. Okay, here's a real easy one, the logs. The most simplest thing is signing in. If you look at the top of the web browser, it says ZNY Center Tools, and it says ZV is signed in. The way you sign in is by clicking on the logs link. We'll take it to a logs page. You could do a number of things down here. We'll go through them one by one. First, let's say someone else wants to sign in. Put your two initials in. New York Center has a departure director and a ship coordinator as our main positions. You could just type them in, click sign in, and now if you look on the top of our web browser, XX is signed in. Let's just drop back down again to our logs page. As you'll see, because the program knows that someone is signed in this box here, to make a comment, XX is already filled in, and you can just, this is just for free texting different remarks or information into the log. Now again, the log is the log that TMC Tools keeps. Every action, every restriction that you put in, everything that you edit, any reroute that you change or implement, any military block that's changed or turned active or cold, is actually recorded by the program, and it makes, as we'll see, probably a lot better logs than most of us are used to making. We'll go back to our logs page, and there's a couple of links on the bottom here. View is a web page. What this is going to show you now when you click it. It's going to go through the database and take any log entries for the time period that it'll show on the top and show you basically what they are. If we look, it tells you right here, these are the two dates that these are from. Now this is a number of days. Normally at the end of the day this resets itself, but this will give you from what's in our database right now. And as you can see, this one just is a comment, so it says XX because that's who was signed on, made the following comments, and it was just test. It does give you a timestamp. When I signed in, it gives you a type. It's a sign in. XX has signed in at the SC position. Military block, remember when we just changed the military block? It'll show you ZV changed it. He was signed on at the time. Changed the status of the Yankee block. It lists it and says that it was changed to hot. Gives you the time. Again, it goes all the way down. If we scroll down, it'll give you everything that was recorded by the TMC Tools. You can just hit the back button. It'll take you back to the log page. Now, the other button here that says Start New Day, basically what that does is that's going to reset the log. It's going to make all those entries in that log, the page that we just saw, make them inactive. Doesn't delete them because they're used for logging and research, but it will make them inactive as far as you're concerned. So we can click the button, take us right back to the main page. But here's the difference now. If we go back into the logs page, and now we view as a web page, you'll see that TMC Tools is telling you there are no records there for the day, and it'll start all over again. In New York Center, we have set it up that every night at about 2 o'clock in the morning, it takes all this information from this web page, stores it in a file for the offices, and resets the log. It's all done by automation, but the links are there on the bottom if your facility doesn't have that automation set up. But if you don't and you want it, you should contact me. It's very easy to set up. Okay, I'm going to jump around a little bit. We're going to first move down here. Now this is the main restriction area. This is most of what you'll be doing will be taking place. And you can see there's a fix or a route column, and then there would be an airway or a destination or a fix, such as Atlanta, Ditch, Medina, J48 or J75, or Philadelphia. You'll notice they are color coded, and we'll get into them in a moment. Well, over here in New York, again, the areas are A through F, so this will show you that this particular restriction is going to what area it's going to, what area it affects, the restriction itself. And again, we use strip marking that we came up with. This is actually a free text box that you're going to be typing things into, but New York Center got together and we developed some strip marking that we'd like to use for consistency. There'll be a start time, an expiration time, and the action box. If you're not in the office view, you'll be able to edit restrictions and of course delete restrictions. So the first thing I want to look at is how do we get fixes into the machine. There's a box right here that says fix route. Click the add new and it brings you to this box. These are all the fixes that are currently in the machine, and of course you could see if you don't like one you can delete it. Let's say we didn't want to see arrivals. That's pretty generic. Let's hit delete and it'll go back and arrivals is now not there. Let's say we go up here and we want to add a fix, let's say Bacchus. Hit add new fix. Takes us back to this page, the main page. But if we look back in there, we'll see now that Bacchus has been added to the list and it's also capitalized. Let's say we put Bacchus in again and we hit add new fix. The computer's smart enough to know that Bacchus is in there and it won't put it in twice. Once they are in the machine, you don't have to keep putting them in. When you're putting the restrictions in, you put Atlanta or Bacchus in once and it'll always be there. Let's talk a little bit about the coloring that you see on the restrictions. First, normally the restrictions will alternate between a light blue and a little bit of a darker blue, and that's just to help you read or differentiate between the restrictions. You'll also notice that if there's under Atlanta there's two lines, and but Atlanta only appears once. That there are actually two Atlanta restrictions in. There's one that this area A has, and there's one that area B has. That's why there's two lines. I didn't want to keep repeating Atlanta, so once they'll always be grouped as far as the fix or the route, and then broken down to how many restrictions you have. If you had 5 different areas that were affected by an Atlanta restriction, then you may have 5. If they had different restrictions, you'd have 5. You would have 5 lines under Atlanta. Let's start and take a look at the color coding. Like I said before, it would be light and a darker blue to help differentiate, but they also change colors. As we saw before, this ditch restriction actually was beige a couple of minutes ago, and now it's turned red. Now what that's telling you, when they're blue and light blue, you're in the normal process. The restriction hasn't started yet, or we're in the middle of the restriction, but it's not close to ending. When a restriction starts to come up to, let's say 30 minutes to its expiration time, this line or box or multiple lines will turn a beige color. Again, I say 30 minutes because it's an adjustable parameter. New York Center uses 30 minutes. It'll turn beige, and basically what that'll do is just kind of remind it to you that, hey, this restriction is about to expire. You may want to look at it to extend it, but take some action. When they turn red, we have it set for 5 minutes. They're about to be done. So if you didn't take any action, here's kind of your last indication to say, hey, it's about to be over. You got to do something. I'm red. Take a look at me. The restrictions will not drop out automatically. They can be made to do that after their end time or some time period beyond their expiration time. New York Senate chose not to implement that, but the program's capable of doing it. If a restriction is over, you can just run over to the action box and click the delete, and you'll notice it's gone now. Again, blue and light blue, normal. Beige, half hour to the expiration time. Red, 5 minutes to the expiration time. Okay, now to the kind of the meat and potatoes of TMC Tools is the restrictions. We've talked a little bit about what you're looking at as far as the boxes go, the color coding, how to get different fixes in the restriction into the machine so we can use them, and it's time now to start using them. To enter a restriction in the restriction box, just click the Add New link. It brings you to kind of a big page. It's not really overwhelming. It's set up for your benefit. The first thing what we'll notice is there are some buttons on the top. These buttons actually are going to be removed very soon. They're quick action buttons, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Your facility may or may not have it, but they are available. First thing we'll do is we'll go down here and you'll notice that the initials XX, he was signed on, so his initials are automatically placed in the box. You cannot enter a restriction without putting something in the initial box. So now we have a restriction, let's say, that starts at let's say 0620, and it's going to end at 0700. Oops, 0700. And notice how this box is active now. You can pull down the list, and these are all the fixes that were added into the program I showed you before by the Add Fix box. So let's say the restrictions for Cincinnati, but only the J6 Cincinnatis. Click it, put it in there. Now notice there's 5 lines, and notice that when we put the time in the top, it carried down to the 5 boxes on the bottom. Our J6 Cincinnati's 15 miles in trail, and it's just for jets. You can put a J. You can basically put anything you need in here. In New York City, we like to keep the strip marking down to a minimum. The strip marking, the TMC Tools, down to a minimum, because the areas kind of also know what the restrictions are. But you can type what you want. Let's say 15 jets, and this is the time period for this line of restrictions. And let's say it affects one area, Area A. If you also look, the DD is automatically checked on all these different lines, and we'll talk about that later, but it's good to note that the DD, or departure director, automatically will get this message. We can also move down here. Let's say Cincinnati affects more than one area. This line would say that Area A has to give 15 miles on the jets between this time period. Let's say down here, we can back this up, let's say 20 minutes now, and say that gotta give 15. What this would say is, this restriction reads you have to give 15 on Cincinnati J6s. You'll be getting 15 from Boston Center, and that may affect, let's say, Area B in my facility. So how this would work is Area B, I guess, would be the first one to get this traffic. They're getting 15 from Boston Center. They have to give 15 to the next people in line, which would be Area A. Now Area A has to give 15 to the next facility, which in our case would be Washington Center. And a lot of the times what we like to do is put it in parentheses what you're getting, and what's not in parentheses is what you have to give. And you have 5 lines, so any one restriction could affect 5 different areas. In this case, we've put 2 areas in there. You click Enter Restriction. It'll take us back to the main page, and as you'll see right here, Cincinnati J6, Area A needs to give 15, they're getting 15. Area B has to give 15, they're getting 15 from Boston. These are the time periods that we chose, and again, if we want to edit that restriction, let's say we're getting more from Boston, just click the Edit button, and again, you have a miniature box that you were looking at before, but it's only for that one particular line. Let's say we're getting 30 from Boston and 30 from N90. We can enter that. Now if you look, that restriction reads you got to give 15 to the next area. You're getting 30 from Boston and you're getting 30 from N90. You have to mix those together, give 15. The Area A again is getting 15. It's in parentheses and has to give 15. And that's how in New York Center we handle the restrictions. If you needed to delete any one of these lines, you just click the delete button and it's gone. It's out of the database. It's never really deleted. It's just marked as inactive. So for later research, you can always go back. The next thing we're going to look at is this button or link over here called Turn Filters On. I've set up two positions. One is the DD, Departure Director, and that's what this next link, the link next to it is the Use DD page, and the main page, the Shift Coordinator page. That doesn't mean that people can't work off of the same page. Sometimes in my facility we'll have 3 or 4 guys all working off the SC page, the Shift Coordinator page. It doesn't matter, but there's two positions, and you'll see it just kind of to keep the restrictions and the information filtered out, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. Turn filters on. You'll see this link here. You click that link and you'll notice a couple of things have happened. First, on the top in big bold letters says filters are on. That is there to remind you that there are filters on and there could be restrictions that are in or active that you're not looking at. That link also changed to turn filters off. You click that and you'll notice up on the top that the filters are on went away, and the button again says turn filters on. We'll click it to turn the filters on again. We see the indication. And if you look now in the actions column, you have edit as you did, delete as you always did, and now you have hide me. And this is useful when you have restrictions that don't affect you, like the departure directive really does not want to see an arrival restriction to Philadelphia. These restrictions in New York Center would be arrival restrictions. So let's say someone was working some certain specialty or some different aspect of a flow, and there's other restrictions on that page. You can just hit hide me, click the link, and that's what we're doing right now, and he can actually just hide those restrictions. Those restrictions weren't deleted, they still exist. It's just that he's not looking at them. And again, we've made it a point that when we give briefings in position relief briefings that we always click the turn filter off button. What that does is bring all the restrictions back. Philadelphia is back on the screen, but when we give the position relief briefing, we now know that we haven't forgotten anything. Now that we've just done filters, I guess it's a good time to introduce the DD page. Like I said before, there are two main positions in New York Center as far as TMU is concerned. It's an SC, a Shift Coordinator, and a DD, a Departure Director. The Departure Director only handles departures, and the Shift Coordinator, he kind of gets his hands in everything, but he focuses on the en route restrictions or anything that needs to be done as far as en route traffic. So we chose to give them the ability to have different pages, and you'll see why. Basically, it's allowing them to have custom filters, different filters that won't affect each other. Let's get right to it. You'll see the link, use DD page. You click it. You'll see on the top here now it says DD page, so you'll know you're on that. The page works exactly the same way, but it allows the departure director to have a custom set of filters. Let's say you work in the DD, you turn your filters on. Notice again on the top it says filters are on. Again, you have the hide me in the action box, edit, delete, and hide me. So if he doesn't want to see the Philadelphia restrictions, he can take them out. There's also another way of doing that. If we turn the filters back off, we'll get all our restrictions back. And let's say we click edit on this restriction. If you notice, there was a box that said DD. If this box was not clicked when the restriction was originally put in place, the DD would not have seen it either. If we take this, unclick the DD box, and click edit restriction, whether I have the filters on or off, notice on the top the filters are not on, so we are seeing all the restrictions, but that filler restriction isn't there. That's because it's now not even directed to the DD. So arrival restrictions can be totally filtered out from the DD's positions, as well as if he turns his filters on, he can filter out any individual restrictions. Let's say there's some HVRs that are in there that you just know are there. You really don't want to look at it. You have more important things to do. You can just click hide me and they'll be gone. Again, when in New York Center, when we give the position relief briefing, we like to turn the filters off. We check up on the top. Everything that should be displayed will be displayed, except if the Philadelphia was not directed towards the DD, then he won't see it. In New York, we anything that's a pure arrival restriction that won't affect departures at all, we don't direct to the DD, just so he's got less to look at. If you want to get back to the SC page, our shift coordinate page, this link changed now from use DD page to use SC page. You click it and you're back to this main page, and again all the restrictions are there and you can tell the filters aren't on. It may sound confusing, but basically it just allows you to filter out information that you don't want to see. I know in Cleveland they have certain positions they work the Chicago push, and another one works the Cleveland push. It may be useful in that respect. You know, by setting up different filters, they can concentrate on what affects them. And of course, if you don't want to use any filters, you don't have to use them. You can just have all the restrictions listed. But in New York, we found that when it gets busy and we're in swap or in a busy night departure push, that a lot of the restrictions do tend to add up. And it's nice to have the ability to filter them out, and also the two positions to have the ability to filter out even further by using the DD page and then setting more custom filters. I've set up two positions, the DD, the SC. If a facility needed more, it could be easily be done. More positions could be added. So if you need them, just call me or email me and let me know. As I had talked about before, as far as the restrictions, as you could see, our Cincinnati J6 restriction just went beige, or this line went beige anyway. You can see, and why did it go beige? If you look, it expires at 0700 and the time now is 0631. Therefore, it's coming up on the time period that you may, if you're going to extend it, you may want to look at it to extend it. When it gets within 5 minutes of its expiration time, it will turn red. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is what New York calls the pit sheets. If you look on the bottom of our TMC Tools, you'll see that it has current reroutes. We have it, anything that needs to be addressed will be on this top line, as you can see. Like here's an example: I slipped to over Robbinsville, or J48, or J75 and J6. Anything that you want to type in, here's where it's here's where it's addressed, and then anything that was addressed up here will be spelled out right down here. So Philadelphia going to White Plains, and the routing's right here. Now New York Center, where we're a big departure facility, so we have a departure pit. Some facilities may not have it. Some facilities are actually getting departure pits, but we work a lot of departures, and we need a way to have the departure pit have a centralized location for their reroutes. So we came up with this this pit sheet. So anytime you see a link that says pit sheet or edit pit message, then you'll know we're not talking about Pittsburgh, we're talking about our departure pit. You may not have a departure pit in your facility, but this is still probably where you want to keep any of the reroutes that you currently have in effect. If you click add message for pit, it'll bring it to a very simple page. You can basically, let's say we put in Atlanta, and then down here we'll say use KACDRs. Anything that any message that you want could be typed in here. It does recognize multiple lines, so if you hit the return button it will space it, but you push a message in there, you click enter, bring it back to the main page, and if you look down here now, Atlanta, and it says use KACDRs. New York Center uses coded departure routes. Some facilities don't, but we all use playbook routes from the command center. So if the command center calls and gives you a playbook for Dallas or for Atlanta, this is where you would put it. Again, there's also an edit pit message button, which will take it to almost the identical page that we just saw before, except now that they're laid out and there's an edit and a delete link there. If you click the edit, it brings you right back to a box that you saw before. Edit that page, or if you hit delete, it deletes it out of the restrictions. Scroll down to the bottom and you can return either to the TMC page or the DD page. Again, in New York, the departure director will handle almost all of the reroutes that are on this page, so we put a link there that will take them right back to the DD page. We're going to go right back to our main page, but again you'll see that it's been updated. They are sorted alphabetically, so you can play little tricks. Even though, let's say something starts with a Q but you want it on top, if you just put a little star in it as far as the name goes, and I'll show you how that may work, just to get it on top, we'll do an edit, and let's say we'll take a restriction that's down here. Let's say this islip to Robbinsville restrictions. We'll edit it, and in the name, what we do in New York is we put a little asterisk if we want that on top, and you'll look right now that islip to Robbinsville is on top. Again, if we go to the edit pit message page, we can just delete it if we want out of there. Also, as far as the pit, we've seen to add pit messages, we've seen how to edit pit messages, and then there's the old pit sheet. Basically what this does is just take all the reroutes that you had, put it in a nice format so we can go up here and hit the print button. Why? New York Center, what we do is we put all the reroutes on the sheet, we print these sheets out, and then we walk them over to our departure pit, or if an area needs them, we'll walk them over to the area. We are in New York experimenting and exploring the possibility of having our departure pit also have a PC monitor with this page, but right now we print them out and we walk them over, and that's all the pit sheet is. It's just a way to format it nicely for the pit. You could actually print this screen out if you wanted to, as we mentioned before, by hitting the print button, but then you have a whole bunch of stuff that the departure people or the areas don't really need. Built into TMC Tools is also a real-time messaging system between the areas. Right now it's been disabled. We didn't have the procedures written up to use this, but I would like to just touch upon it quickly so you know that what is available if your facility does decide to implement it. What will happen is basically when you send a restriction by clicking the new restriction button and inputting a restriction for an area, when they get the message on their screen, they'll have an icon of a head, and that'll tell them, hey, there's something new here, you better go take a look at it. And we'll take a look at what that may look like when we view the area pages. But also on the TMU page, right above the route restrictions and the military operations, will be a little blue light bulb. We may change the graphics. Right now they're blue light bulbs, but basically you have a light bulb and the name of the area. In our case, let's say area A. So it'll be a blue light bulb in area A and a blue light bulb in area B. Let's say for this Atlanta restriction when we put these restrictions in. Those light bulbs will stay blue for 5 minutes. That's the amount of time that we've set that the areas must acknowledge the restriction. The way an area would acknowledge a restriction would be just simply clicking on the head on their page, and that would make my blue light bulb go away. If the area didn't respond within 5 minutes, my light bulbs turn red, which indicates to me the area may not have seen this or there's some sort of problem, and I'm going to pick up the phone. New York, again, we didn't have the procedures in place to use it, so I've temporarily disabled the functionality right now. This clear warnings link here is when you clear this would clear any of the blue light bulbs on your page. Let's say you put something in, it's just an edit, it's the same thing, you just change some of the verbiage, it's not really important. So you make the edit on the restriction, now all the light bulbs come up to the areas, but they're really not a real message. So you can just click clear warnings, and that will clear the heads, the acknowledgement request anyway, as far as the area is concerned, or for their page, and it'll clear the light bulbs off of your page. That's covered the we've just covered pretty much everything on the TMC side of the TMC Tools. We've covered how to get there, booting up your web browser, having it set for your home page, or just typing in the address, what the time means, so you'll always know you have the most current information, and then the page should refresh about every minute. The airways, destination, and stops, it's a tool for you to see what's open, what's not open. During a hectic swap, it's a great tool that anybody, the STMCs, the manager in charge, or the other TMCs will all be on the same page when things are happening very quickly. The special activity and the ground delay boxes we've covered. We've covered route restrictions, military operations. We've covered how to log in, make log entries, view the logs, restart the log. We've covered the filter system. We covered the DD page, switching back and forth, and again, if you need another position, it could easily be created. The clear warnings button, which is not active, the button's actually active, but the system isn't in the program. We've talked about what the PID is, as far as getting messages to them, what New York uses it for. You could use them for anything. We use them for the reroutes, and if you look on the bottom, it's called current reroutes, not just PID. So in your facility, if you just have someone that handles the reroutes, or if the areas could be looking at it, whatever your need may be, it could also be customized to fit your needs. Just let us know. The only thing we're going to be talking about next is the area view. what the areas are looking at. But before we go, just want to show you, if you look up on the top here, if someone doesn't have the rights to view or edit the TMC page, they'll automatically be transferred over to this page. And if you can see, it's the exact same page, but all the links are gone. There's nothing to edit. All the reroutes are on the bottom. All the actions, as far as the restrictions, have been disabled. They can still get to the military page, but there's no way to edit it. So it's a kind of a read-only, and the areas can go here. Or people in different offices. Again, New York Center uses the machine itself to control if you're allowed to view it or not. So if you try to come to New York Center's military page right now, you couldn't get